Welcome to the Global Hospitality Collective podcast, where real talk meets the art of hosting. I'm Jodie Odlin, creator of the Hospitable Host book series and founder of the Global Hospitality Collective. Today, I'm joined by three powerhouse women in the short-term rental world, Helen Lavigne, Rose Tipka, and Debbie Todd. Now, this isn't your perfectly polished panel. It's honest, funny, and sometimes a little too real. We're diving into the chaos, quirks, and the heart of what it really means to host. So if you're here for behind-the-scenes stories, hard-earned lessons, and a few outrageous guest moments along the way, grab your coffee or something stronger and let's get into it. Hi ladies, how are you this week? It's nice to see you all. I'm Jodie.
I'm Rose.
Hey everyone, I'm Debbie.
Hi, I'm Helen.
And thanks for everyone for listening, joining us for another week of fun discussions. And this week we're talking about building in the STR community. And we've got some builders amongst us and others that design our spaces specifically for short-term rentals. So who wants to go first? I hear there's some great building happening amongst us all.
Yeah, so I will get started on that because we do a lot of construction and we build our STRs, vacation rentals, from the ground up. We have taken it sort of to that extra level, and we have a unique floor plan that comes in 3 different sizes that we like to build. So our homes are sort of similar. I like to say that what we're doing is we're taking what's good about hotels, which is fundamentally all hotels have the same basic floor plan, right? Whether it's the Motel 6 or the Ritz-Carlton, they all have the same basic floor plan. And we're combining that with solving the problem of what makes STRs difficult is that each home is a unicorn. And so with our floor plan, we have a lot of practice with building it. I have a lot of practice with designing it. And at this point, I know what really works for us, and it makes it easier for us to execute on that vision, especially as each time we get bigger. And right now we're building a 9,000 square foot, 11 bedroom house.
Just think of all that furniture.
Yes. So across 11 bedrooms, we'll be able to accommodate 35 people. I don't like pull-out couches. I have to tell you, I'm a little bit of a snob about that. I know the data says that guests don't care about pull-out couches, but I do. So that's 35 people in beds, not in pull-out couches. It's over 3 different floors. So each floor is a little over 3,000 square feet. It's 8.5 bathrooms. And one of the things that I am really proud of and excited about this house is that we're making it fully handicap accessible. I've learned a lot about handicap accessible features, designs, and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes there's this idea that if something is handicap accessible, it's not as aesthetically pleasing, or it looks industrial or institutionalized, and that's just utter nonsense. There are plenty of really wonderful ways to make handicap accessible design. Just design. It doesn't have to be different than design in general. So I'm really happy about that. We have an elevator for full accessibility. People can drive around to the back of the house. We have 2 fully handicap accessible bathrooms on all levels. We have ramp access to the deck, all of that kind of stuff. So we're really leaning into that with this property.
How fantastic, Rose. That just sounds like an epic project to start with, but to be able to bring that accessibility into one of these short-term rentals, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Now, Debbie, I hear you are also building, but you're sort of on the other side of the building experience spectrum. Why don't you share what you're building right now?
So we have the 2 properties we have now, we renovated. So we bought them. They were a hot mess. Thank goodness I have a husband that is super handy, and he's a visionary. Like, he can see it. I cannot. I don't like paint colors. He's like, Debbie, we can change paint colors. I have learned a lot from him. But so we are doing our first build. So we have 14 acres on one of our properties, and we have been dreaming this up for probably 3 years. The process is extremely slow initially because we actually parceled off our 14 acres. So that was kind of a process in itself. We just, we're like, do we do it? Do we not? The reason we did is to give us more options if we want to sell one. The other one, it's totally its own entity. It's got its own well, it's got its own septic. So again, a little bit longer process at the beginning, but I'm very happy that we did it. And then I learned so much through it because you have to get soil samples. I'm like, what's a soil sample? All this stuff. So actually, that wasn't horrible. But then now we found a builder. That was a hard part of trying to find a builder. My husband and I, we started off with 3 smaller ones. Then we're like, tree houses. That sounds great. And then we have bigger properties. And I'm like, why don't we just do what we know? And when you look at our area, when you look up a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, even 3-bedroom, the amount of properties is huge. And then you get to a 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom, 7-bedroom, and the options go whoop. So I'm like, I think that's what I want. So we are doing a 7-bedroom, 4-bath. That's where we are now. We broke ground about 6 weeks ago. We were there last week, and I'm like, I love it. This part. The next part, I'm not totally thrilled about because it's all about design. No. Like I said, I'm learning as I go. Going through it last week with the builder, it was really cool because how you have to look at it is so different than your own house. Like Rose was saying, I'm like, people are coming here for the very first time. They don't know where lights are. They don't know where. So I'm like, I want to make sure I have a light that pops on when they get there, which I like that at my house too. But light switches, the outlets, that was my big thing. I'm like, okay, I want if we're going to put the bed here, I want outlets on, not in the middle of the bed. I want it on both sides of the bed. So we had to change outlets all over the place. That to me was fun. I enjoyed trying to figure that out. If I was a guest, I've never been here, what would that look like? And then as we get a little bit more into this discussion, of the design, how does that look? Because I'm actually going to probably learn a lot from Rose, hearing her and the other ladies. And it depends on your avatar. Like, who's coming? Is it the couple that wants that romantic getaway, that they just want all the things? Or is it big groups of families and friends that they want functional, they want durable, they want nice? So I have a lot of I look at all these beautiful places in our area and I'm like, oh, but I want that. But it doesn't make sense in our place. And I have to be okay with that. So that's kind of been my struggle of, I want it to be really nice, but we're not luxury. And I have to be okay with that. So that's kind of where we are now.
Now, Helen, you are doing a rental project on a much different scale. You want to share what you're working on?
It's so funny. Listen, you guys, you're building these massive houses, and I'm building 14 by 20. So I have 2 glamping tents. I actually just sold them on Sunday because our guests they liked them, but they didn't love them. And I think part of the issue was we have couples who rent the whole property either for retreats or weddings or just big gatherings, and they assign their guests to the buildings, and some people love camping and others don't, and they would be in these tents. And with tents, you do have a bug that will come in, or there's no heat and air conditioning, and they would just find it not as comfortable as the cabins. So I made the decision to replace the glamping tents because we are about hospitality. We want every guest to be happy that they are staying on site, not bummed that they got the tent. So the hard part was trying to find something unique. Like you had said, Debbie, there are a lot of 1-2-bedroom kind of places in the market. So how do I stand out if I have, for the most part, my property is rented direct booking, but I do have the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, weekday dates. How do I get those bookings to fill in my week? And I decided to go kind of, I guess, for a unique guest experience, something they wouldn't normally do. So I bought a bus. And one of my glamping tents is going to be, it's a city bus that was designed to look like a trolley. And so the reason I chose that is with the history of the property, which I'm very mindful of. I won't just put, like, I love the idea of a tree house and I would love to have one, but nowhere during the history of Brookledge were there tree houses. And it doesn't match with the story, but the campers, they all took a bus to come here. And I thought, okay, well, I will tie the bus into the story of this property because that's a big piece of here is the story of this place. So the bus is actually going to be called the Woodstock bus because the campers rode either the Snoopy bus or the Woodstock bus. And we start the project on, well, we've been gutting the bus, which was a whole nother, like Debbie, as you're doing things, you're like, soil sample. We had to grind every nut and bolt that will held the seats down of the bus so that the floor will be flush. So there's things like that that we just didn't take into consideration. But now we're designing the space and we have 4 people that are going to be sleeping in a bus. So how do we make it so it's comfortable for them? And like you said, Debbie, the outlets, we're putting outlets by every bed. One of the things I'm also doing is putting individual lights so that if somebody wants to get up in the middle of the night and they don't want to turn all the lights on, they have a small light next to their bed so they can find their phone or whatever it is. Things like a coffee bar and a place for guests to sit. But then also, like, I'm looking at the front of the bus, I want to keep the kind of the mechanics of it. I want it to stay looking like a bus. And so I'm trying to come up with a really cool seating option for almost like a picture moment because I could see my child sitting there at the bus and then I go to the front of it and get that picture. So I'm looking not only at the comfort level, but what is going to be eye-catching and what is going to be an experience when they leave and say, oh my gosh, remember we stayed on that in that bus and we have that fun picture. So I'm looking at all of those pieces. And also making sure that my beds, and I know, ladies, you have something similar, that it's easy for my staff to clean and it's easy for the laundry piece. So I could fit a king size bed back there, but I don't have any king size beds anywhere else on the property. So that means I would have to add a third style of linen. And I don't want to do that because for cost purposes, and it's much easier to have them all the same. So I'm going on to those types of things. The other tent is going to be a cabin, but one of the things we noticed, and Jodie and I have been talking about that because the retreat will be here next year, is with the glamping tent, it's one open space. There's no privacy. So you have 2 queen beds in one space. So if you are putting people in that may not know each other, it's a little challenging. So when I removed the tents, I have now this platform and I have to reuse the platform because then it's a waste of our money. And I'm going to build a cabin, one cabin, but we're putting a wall that's dividing it. So it will have 2 separate entrances. So people will have their own private space, but it's the same blueprint. And just to make that a little easier, one side will have a ramp and the other side will not. And that's going back, Rose, to the guest accessibility. We do have a retreat here every year called Ainsley's Angels. And we do have people here that want to experience nature and they are in wheelchairs. So I want to give them a space, like if they want to be with their friend over at that cabin, we can have that kind of accessibility. So when we're building these things, just like you said, Rose, we're not building it for us. We're thinking of like who our guests are and what they're going to need. And also what fits our budget, right, Debbie? Like, yes, I would love to put in like all these fancy things, but it doesn't make sense for my space. It doesn't make sense for my property. I really want a tree house. It may happen one day, but it doesn't make sense with the story of the property. And my other building is going to be white and black. And because the other bus was Snoopy, so the cabin will be the Snoopy cabin, and then we'll have the Woodstock bus just to kind of pay homage to that story. And so I think that's kind of the part that people don't see when we're designing these spaces. There's all these little things that go into it. And yes, it's fun. It's also like a decision fatigue.
It's
is a thing.
intentional. It's intentional.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's just really important that as people are designing it, that they take all these things into consideration. Your brand, like Rose has a very specific brand to her property. And so her properties are on brand. It wouldn't make sense for her to put a submarine on her space. It just doesn't make sense. I kind of want a submarine now, but anyhow,
I don't do boats, and submarines are boat adjacent. As we all know,
Yeah.
I don't do boats.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like it wouldn't make sense for your brand, just like it wouldn't make sense for my brand to have Rose's house on here when all the buildings are these small, intimate, cozy spaces where it forces the guests to go outside. The whole purpose of this property is for people to get outside, to get to enjoy those spaces. So if I'm putting all of these luxuries and amenities in the cabins, they're not going to go outside. And that's the whole point of it. So having a really large home on here, it just doesn't make sense with the space. And I think that's all of those things we want to take into consideration. And and I know I'm going to learn some things with you as you're building it, things like the showers and the outlets and all of those bits and pieces.
Now, Jody, you are sort of on the whole other side of the newness spectrum where your cottages are like 400 years old. And you've done a lot of updating of those, but also like in Tetbury, there's a very specific story of Tetbury, and you've tried to kind of wind that into your cottages.
Yeah, that's right. Everything from the paint colors, like we have Cotswolds primed colors for our painting of our walls and the features of the buildings. And then it's very intentional to keep it country because we're in the country. And for me, there is nothing worse than when you go into a country property and there's like seaside decor, right, on the walls. Or beachside decor, which Helen, I've been to your property. Your properties are so intentionally designed from the inside. You've got everything to do with the Girl Guides and how it used to be, like with the memorabilia there. And I've tried to do something similar to mine. And yeah, Rose, like you say, they're old cottages. I can't knock down walls, and there's very limited things that we can do. But I do have a grade 2 listed building, which was totally gutted and made renovated into 5 apartments. And although I don't own those apartments, I run them under rental arbitrage. The owner was terrific when he said to me, "Would you like these apartments?" And I helped him choose the colors and the kitchen cupboards and the flooring and all of that. And that was intentional. So we didn't have carpets down because the UK, everyone has carpets. And so we didn't put carpets down because it's easier to clean with the floorboards. However, we do have one property which you stayed in, Rose, which is fully carpeted because the building is so old that the floor goes like this. And so we had to pack it in some areas, and others we just had to cover up with the carpet. So yeah, again, a very different space, but intentionally designed, not only from the functional type of the space, but all the design aspect, like you're talking about, Debbie, which is just for short-term rentals. I look at some of my properties and I think, oh, there's no way I could live there. Although they were built to live there, they're perfect for short-term rentals. Absolutely perfect.
There's a
Jody,
lot
can I
of
pick your
talk
brain
about
on paint
being
colors?
intentional. Oh, yes, paint colors, Jody.
Yeah, so Jody, you were talking about like paint colors, which I have very specific colors to my property. They're all 1970s nature based, so they're all like
Yes.
greens, rust oranges, things like that. What are the colors that you pick for your spaces? And Rose and Debbie, I'd love to hear about yours as well. Are the colors designed for a certain aesthetic or feel?
Yes, definitely. So the Cotswolds, which is the area that my properties are in, we do have like it's rolling green countryside. So it is very intentional that everything is sandstone type colors and light greens and grays and some blues in there. And then inside, obviously that's up to me, but I do like to bring those same country colors in, just like you, all the earthy tones. I'll try to stay away from these magnolia. I don't know if you have magnolia over there in the US, but magnolia is a color that everyone just plasters over their walls of their rental properties. And so it's like not a white, but not a cream. It's this off like icky kind of almost a yellowy color, but everywhere has this magnolia. So I try to stay away from magnolia.
Yeah. So when I am picking paint colors, I'm starting with some of my harder surfaces that are harder to change. So like right now, for those of you who are listening, I'm holding up a piece of quartz, which is my go-to countertop. Debbie sent me some pictures of some countertops and I'm like, that's not granite, is it? I don't recommend granite, but I'll start with my hard surfaces that are expensive and then I'll pick paint colors off of that. I do pick one main color for basically the entire house. The hallways, the living rooms, the bathrooms, the bedrooms. And then in the bedrooms, we do trim like beadboard or paneling on the wall behind where the bed is. And just that paneling or that beadboard is painted like an accent color. And that adds some color to the bedrooms, but also when you have that paneling on the wall behind the bed, it stretches that wall and it gives the illusion of a bigger bed, if that makes sense. And so I'm using those kind of visual cues to make the beds look bigger, even though they're already king size beds. So what I do is each bedroom does have a theme. Not so far as saying it's Disneyfied, like Disney has a theme, don't get me wrong, but we try to make each room say something. Sometimes I view it as a character, like there's a character who would live in this room and how would they design it? And so we pick a color that goes with that character or that person. So like we have one room that we call the sea captain room. So it has more of like a navy blue, and the decor in that room would be what the sea captain would have put in. One of my favorite rooms is I call it the fussy ant room. And so it's like your aunt that has collected every plate at the thrift store and the flea market that's covered in florals. And so that room is a little busier, covered in fussy plates, and the sconces have little crystals on them because of course your fussy aunt would have a little bit of bling on her walls. So I do like to think about rooms in terms of like a theme or who would live there, but those themes also have to make sense for what the overall design of the property is going to be. But there has to be that cohesion with color. It can't be something garish. Like I have a house that's more of like an English cottage, but brand new, like pumpkin orange probably wouldn't work in there. So I'm thinking about like that overall design aesthetic and who are the different characters or themes that go with that, and then kind of assigning those to rooms. And then I'm going to treasure hunt for decor that matches those themes.
Fantastic. Now I know in our industry there are a lot. We've kind of gone into the design aspect of things now, but we'll go back to Debbie because she's still in that building phase, and it's been fascinating for me to watch her on social media. This house has just gone boom, 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 boom. But just why we're talking about the design aspect, there's a lot of people in our industry who are designers who market themselves just to design short-term rental accommodation. Have any of you ever engaged in any of those services?
So I have not, although I'm friends with people that do that, and they're a fantastic resource for people that that they don't love that. Here's the thing: you don't have to love everything about everything. There's some things I don't love, and so I hire that out. And if Debbie doesn't love the design, that's okay. Like there's no rule that says you have to do it and you have to love all of it. I know there's different design companies, and some of them have very specific aesthetics, and so you want to make sure that you're picking one that can do the aesthetic you want, or if they have a certain aesthetic and that's what you want, go with them. And so you do have to do your research to find the right design company that is going to bring the right aesthetic to your project.
Is that something you're thinking of, Debbie? Because you don't like the design?
Right. Yes and no. So where we struggle is that when you start to look at, because I want to say, yes, I want someone to come in and design it all and furnish it all, but that costs money. And we're limited on our budget and what we're doing. And so that's where I'm struggling right now, is that, yes, I want someone to come and just take care of it because I don't want to do it, but we don't have to that extent in our budget. So what does that look like? And that's what we're trying to figure out now. Again, I have a husband that is really good, and we've talked through stuff. I've cried through stuff, and that we have to take a break. Maybe last night that happened. And So that's kind of where I am of, it's kind of like I know the basic of what I want, but I'm like, but I want someone's approval. So I'm like, how do I get that? And I have friends that are really good at it. So they've kind of, I've, been picking brains of like, okay, well, does this go? And really, one of my friends was like, Debbie, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, I know, but I just want approval. So that's kind of, we're just in the middle of that right now. Just trying to figure out, do we hire someone? Do we try to do it ourselves? And, listening to y'all about the design, I have never, like just listening to you about paint colors, I've never thought about paint colors that much before in my life. Like when y'all were just talking about the intentionality of paint colors, I was like, oh, paint colors? Like I'm thinking functionality of like lights and stuff, but like paint colors. I'm thinking I want one paint color. It may be the magnolia. I don't know.
No.
Magnolia, but I want it like kind of what you were saying, Rose, to go through the whole house. I do like the back of the wall. I'm like, oh, maybe that's what we'll do just to give it a little pop because I want it to be timeless. I don't want to be like, oh, that color's out of style now. And that's what we're doing with our flooring. I'm like, Jeff, what about this? He goes, in 5 years, it's not, I don't want to replace it in 5 years. I'm like, oh, okay, which makes sense because that's how we usually are in our house too. And cost, right? Like I don't want to be replacing something every 2 years to keep up with styles. So you got me thinking about paint colors. I'm like, oh, who knew?
Yeah,
It is.
I think when it comes, you need to think about what timeless design means. And I know that there's a lot of trends for a lot of different ways that the wind blows. But I think going with timeless design is something that you don't have to redesign every 5 years. And sometimes we're drawn to things that are trendy because they're new and they're exciting to our eye and to our brain, and they're sort of outside of what we would necessarily pick. And so tend to be drawn to that. But again, that's something that has to get redesigned every 4 or 5 years.
You
Yeah, I
know what?
agree
I
with
was thinking,
Rose.
and Helen, you had talked about how you design where you want people to be outside. And that's kind of what I was thinking about our bedrooms. Our bedrooms, we have 7 bedrooms. They're like a couple of them are smaller. They're not going to fit much. But in my head, I'm thinking, I want them out of the room. The bed's to sleep in. Let's go hang out with people. So it's funny because I love hearing all of how you design the room of characters. Rose, I'm like, I'm gonna go into my rooms and be like, what character is this? I don't even, I love your brain of how creative it is. But I want it to be nice and comfortable and a place to get away, but then let's go mingle.
And the thing too, and I agree with Rose, like not looking at the trends. I mean, when we did the flooring at the lodge, so the lodge was built in 1950, and we knew that it was going to be a space where it was going to be large group gatherings. And originally I was going to keep the main floor, but I wasn't able to because of the damage of it. But I didn't want to spend a ton of money. And I knew whatever I put in there, I couldn't put like beautiful ceramic tile because it wouldn't go with the building. And so I bought, and just to give you a thought, Debbie, I bought just pine boards. And then I took a blowtorch. I love my blowtorch. And I torched the floor. Like I went around and I just burned it because one, I wanted it to look aged. Two, I wanted to look like something that people wouldn't have in their home already. And three, I knew that it was going to get a lot of wear and tear. And if it's already burnt and beat up, then it wouldn't be a big deal if people scuffed it. And so thinking about your pieces, I would usually take one item. So Jodie, when she stayed here, stayed in Noble House. Noble House was going to be very much a masculine feel, but I wanted whoever stayed in there, even if they didn't love that masculine vibe, felt cozy and warm. And so the whole entire cabin is designed off of a blanket. There's one flannel blanket, and I don't even know if you realized it, Jodie, but there's 3 colors in it. So the walls are the color of the blanket, the curtains are the other color of the blanket. And so the whole space is designed around that. Because if a company spent all this time designing a blanket and they put all these colors that go together, I already know what they go together. So that's
Very
why,
clever.
yeah. And so it was a flannel blanket, and it had the feeling of a masculine, cozy vibe. And so the whole space is off of that blanket, just like the cottage is all designed off of one antique cabinet that I found at a thrift store. So the whole place is that same color. Like I took the actual cabinet to the store and said, make me this paint color. And that's how it was designed. So Debbie, when you're picking your space and you're looking at your room, if you find a blanket that you love for that bedroom, then build it all off of that blanket. Make your curtains a color from that blanket, make your pillows a different color from that blanket. And then it all goes together and it ties. So sometimes we try to make it more complicated than it is, but every space is 3 colors. You got your base color, your accent color, and then your special touch or piece. Yeah. So if you have that in every room, then, and sometimes like when we stayed in Colorado together, the room that Rose and I stayed in, it was like hot pink and white. And I kept thinking, why doesn't it have one other piece? Like it was missing that other color and that other texture. Like it was all like walls and the bed. There wasn't that third texture piece. So everything in style design, things come in 3s. So when you're designing, Debbie, think of that, like your 3 colors, your 3 textures.
So there is, I love what Helen is saying. And I have read a few books on design, which does not in any way make me a design expert, but it did provide me with a couple of rules that I like to follow. And what Helen is talking about from this one book is called an inspiration piece. When you find a piece that you're drawn to that says something, that's your inspiration piece for that room. And then that is like the launch pad for everything else. So in the great room I have, it's a wallpaper, and that wallpaper is my inspiration piece for the other things. And so while I'm picking everything out, I'm going back to that wallpaper and what colors are there. I read in another book that there's a ratio of colors, like what Helen is saying. And the ratio is 60-30-10, is you have 60% is that overall base color. Then you have 2 different accent colors, and that's 30% of the color and then 10% of the color. Now, yes, there's a lot of creativity to this, but I think having those rules, like, do you have to follow them? Are the design police going to show up and like give you detention if you don't follow them? No, but having structure to your decision-making process helps you narrow it down, because when everything is possible, that's overwhelming. But when you have rules to follow, like here is my inspiration piece, 60% of the color is going to be that same color that's everywhere. And then from my inspiration piece, I'm picking 30% of this color and 10% of that color. And that helps create that cohesive design. So having these rules and these structures, and I do have a list of rules that I follow when I'm building, it narrows down the options. So it's not so overwhelming.
Well, and it's okay to break that like it's okay to go kind of different, because you do want to stand out on your pictures. Like the Noble House room, it's floor to ceiling dark green. I would never do that in my home, but it's like it stands out in the pictures. So it's okay, Debbie, to go and do something a little different that you wouldn't do in your home, because people want that. Like, I want to stay someplace that's not like my home. Like the idea of staying at a cottage in the countryside with Jodie's spaces and having the rock and all of that kind of interior, I don't have that. So I would pick something like that because it's so different than what I would normally do for myself. And I think our guests do that too. They're looking for something that's going to have the comforts of home, but not feel like home, because they want to feel like they're on vacation.
Right. And I think you could do that because I know right now, again, my brain goes to, because, we have game rooms in all of our places. I think more functionality, like what are they going to do when they come to our place? They're going to have fun. Again, the whole colors, I'm like, whoa, like this is like blowing my mind of like the amount of like, I'm like, really? Colors. But I do like, with the building, we've got to pick colors out. So now I'm going to be looking at it at a totally different, and we're probably still going to pick the color that I have in mind for the whole house. But now I'm going to like I wrote it down. I've got my inspiration piece and my accent.
Yeah, great.
But I think too, for people that are like, well, I'm not building, I have a place. I think it's now, maybe going into your spaces, because I'm like thinking of my other places. I'm like, what does this look like? And again, not doing it all at once, but maybe there's one room that we maybe change up a little bit. Again, I am one of those people. I do it once and I don't do it again for a very long time because that's just my personality. I like, and then I move on. I do something else. So I may go back to our other places after this is done, this build. I don't have enough brain power right now, but and to go in each room and be like, okay, I'm gonna attack this one right now. Maybe later we'll look. It doesn't have to be an all, and again, looking at your who's coming to stay with you. What are they, it may not be it may not be the paint colors. It may be something, a coffee bar. Oh my gosh, I think my guests would really like this. It's maybe putting that in. So I think I love this, hearing all the different perspectives because there's just different things to think about that you wouldn't have normally thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a lot of these little old cottages which are designed, and furnished in that theme. But then I have this grade 2 listed building, which is a very old building, which has been renovated into 5 modern apartments. And I furnished those in a more of a contemporary way. And at first, when they weren't getting booked, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've done the wrong thing here. I should really switch this out. But now that, people have come to stay and we've got really great reviews, I'm finding like some people love that. They love coming and it's all clean and schmick and contemporary, and others like that really country look. So I've kind of got something for both people. And I don't know if you could do that in a home, if that would even make sense, but you could have some kind of cutesy rooms and then you could have more of a contemporary room. Because if you've got large groups of people coming, some people like the contemporary over and modern over the country style. So I don't know, it's just a thought to put out there, like see who's really again, it comes back to everything that we do. Know your avatar, who's your guest that's coming, and design the place for around them. Only yesterday I had to move a guest and she went from a very old traditional, new, but very traditionally styled property. And I had to move her into one of the modern ones. And she was like, oh, this is my style. And I'm like, really? Like the other one's so cute and cozy. And she's like, oh no, this is me. And she's coming to stay for 8 weeks. So she's like happy as anything because she's found her style. So it just goes to show not everything suits everybody. So just keep that in mind, your avatar.
I wanted to say also, just because again, we're right in it, and this is kind of things we're thinking of as we're picking out, as we have large families, things get torn up. I mean, not torn out, I shouldn't say torn up, but get used. Let's put that, get used well. So, it's funny when we first started this, the things that I used to purchase, and now I'm like, no, because I don't want to replace it in 4 months, things that we kind of were like, oh, we'll skim, we won't do the best couches. No, you got to get a good couch. And recliners, I can't do recline. I thought, oh, they're going to put their feet up and recline. No, they break. Anything that moves breaks. Yeah. So we had these awesome swings that they were so pretty. And I love the picture. Gone. I mean, we have 3 holes in the walls, even with the little, and this is another thing. If people have little signs, there's reasons for those signs. And I don't like to put signs, but there's sometimes you got to put signs.
Yeah.
But even when you were talking about like beds, should I do a king versus a queen? Bunk beds. I know Rose has lots to say for bunk beds, but showers. So this is another thing, we're like, oh, tile. You need to tile the showers. I hate the grout. I don't want the grout. I don't want to clean. Well, I don't want our team to clean the grout. It's just a pain. So we're looking at inserts. And then I'm like, does that make us look cheap because we're doing inserts? Like and Jeff's like, well, maybe we do. And I'm like, I don't want tile. There are things that I'm like, it has to make sense for our cleaning team. I was like, I want them to have a rock star owner's closet. I want to have a rock star owner's closet so they can organize. That was super important to me that they had a place to put all the things to make it easy. So again, it's no movable parts, or as less as possible, and things that are easy, durable, but cost effective. I found this beautiful table to seat 14 to 16 people, and it was beautiful. Oh, y'all, I love it so much. The amount of it, I was like, only for $10,000 that you could have this beautiful, it doesn't make sense. So I've already talked to these beautiful ladies and we're going to try to build our own. So here we go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of materials to choose from when you're building. And there are some materials that are viewed as higher end and nicer. And that sounds good. But in my experience, sometimes those higher end finishes actually don't wear as well as other things. Like, we all love hardwood floors, right? But hardwood floors don't wear as well as LVP. And so they're going to show more. Marble countertops are beautiful, but they stain. And granite looks great, but you have to reseal it. So that's why we always go with quartz. For showers, I'm with you on the inserts versus the tile. Like, tile showers look beautiful in pictures, but they are more expensive and they are significantly more maintenance. And so we do use inserts in all the bathrooms except for the primary ensuite. The primary ensuite is often where the booker is staying. They're the person whose credit card's on file. And so they get that nice fancy bathroom. So we do inserts, and there's no seams in them. Anytime there's a seam, an edge, or a ledge, that is where it's harder to clean and when dirt can build up. And I think my guests appreciate clean showers much more than they do tile showers. So you have to think about what materials you're picking. And sometimes those higher end, fancier materials are really not suited for the space. And so you kind of have to have an understanding of the materials that you're using and then make those decisions based off of that.
Thank
And
you,
Debbie,
Rose.
I think Debbie too, it has to do with your like guest avatar. Like, you're doing families. And even though I'm like a rustic kind of venue, I do have the tiled showers because with bridal and wedding things, everything is sparkly and, those types of things. So I have a custom tiled shower with but I picked tile that was very busy, because then when it's clean, it's hard to keep all those spots away. And so I picked tile that would make that easier. And I also didn't pick a white grout. I picked a grout gets darker. So I picked a naturally darker grout. And so I think picking the things that are easier to clean, I do think that is mindful in doing it. And I think there's a way of doing it within all of the elements. We've been talking a lot about like hospitality and the guest. Is there I know for a while it was like you have to have a hot tub at your space. Is there and I don't have hot tubs because I just don't have a desire to clean them. And but do you have something like in my spaces, because we go more of like the nostalgic feel, I have to have a nostalgic form of entertainment. So like we have VHS players and cassette tape players, and we have records and like old school Nintendos. We have things like that to bring people back to their childhood, which was what summer camp was about. So those are the pieces we add. Is there something in all of your buildings that you add that's very much a hospitality thing for the guest, that is like saunas, hot tub, things like that?
We do have hot tubs at all of our properties. I'm not a huge fan of them, honestly, but people do love them. And in our market where we are, if you don't have a hot tub, you're simply not booking. So for us, that's something that you have to have. Saunas have not made it to our market. So we actually have started putting saunas in so that we are ahead of that curve. So we started with that this fall. And so I'm interested to see if that does help the needle a little bit in the winter. We'll see. When I'm designing things, I want things I don't want them to reveal themselves all at once. That sounds very, frou-frou there, but there has to be layers to the experience, because, people walk in that door, they're going into every room, turning on every light, opening every door, and they're doing it. That's sort of like their first pass. And that's where they're going to get a lot of like the experience right there. But then I build things in that reveal themselves as time goes on. So what does that actually mean? And we have some basement bedrooms, but we use full egress windows because safety first. So in the window wells of the egress windows, I have a fairy garden. And you can only see that fairy garden when you are standing at that window looking out. So it's not something that people get at first pass. It's something that reveals itself later. And that kind of ups that the number of firsts that you can get ups that experience. When I'm putting things like when I'm designing the bedrooms, I think about how people who are in the rooms are laying in bed and what is their view from laying in bed. And so I try to put decor on the wall that reveals itself when they're laying in bed. And so like in the sea captain room, I have nautical flags, which correspond to letters. Didn't know that. And so the nautical flags actually spell a message out. And so I think of, I think about people, they're laying in bed and they see those flags and they know like there's a secret message here. And then they Google it and it's like, oh, it's a new reveal, And so building
What's
those
the
things in,
message?
it says stay here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's just something sweet. It's just something sweet, but it's like a secret code, right? Like it's an inside joke, and it's not something that reveals itself on the first pass. And so go ahead.
Do you take video? Like, is any of this that you're talking about right now, any of that in your listing? Like, do you show pictures of the fairy garden or no?
No. And so that's like one of the things that I talk about is like your property has to be better than the pictures. Like the pictures have to be fantastic, right? But you have to be better than the pictures. And so if you reveal everything up front, it's not better. Like we have a Narnia bedroom because I always wanted a room that was like a secret room because that's cool, right? So we have fooled guests in the past where they're like, I thought this bedroom was in this house and it's not here. And then I say, did you go through the wardrobe? And they're like, hold on just a second. And then they go through and they're like, this is so cool. And so in the listing, you can see the outside of the wardrobe and you can see the pictures inside the bedroom, but it is not clearly revealed that you have to go. So that's part of the experience that's unfolding. So that, we say you have to be better than the pictures. So by building these things that reveal themselves slowly, you're increasing the number of firsts. The first time that the guests do something is the best time. The first time they get the hot tub is the best time. The second or third time, it's not as good. So we want to increase those numbers of firsts and delay that experience so they have that continual arrival feeling for as long as possible.
Wow, you need to teach a class on this. This is amazing.
Continue stretching out the number of firsts. But
so Rose, what are you doing? So what are you doing? You want to come over and come check out my space? And
I texted you. I said, I will come over and let me tell you, we will knock this out in one day. You watch.
I think you should
knock it out, Debbie.
Offer.
I think
all right.
Yeah.
Knock it out, Debbie.
Debbie, do you have something that you're adding to your space? Like, do you have your hospitality, like entertainment or comfort element?
We do. So we're the same thing with Rose. We have to have hot tubs. That is a must. Don't necessarily like them, but it is what it is. And so everyone has that. So again, that's kind of one of those, you just have to have it. It is what it is. But for us, ours is our game room. Almost every review is about the game room. My husband wants it to be like we have this Ohio pins, which is like TVs everywhere, which is, again, we're out in the woods, which I'm not a super big fan about because I'm not a TV person, but it's the best of all worlds. So people are like, we got to watch all the games. And I'm like, but you're in the woods, but again, we want to have stuff for everyone. But our game rooms are like our new build. The entire basement is all game room. There's no bedrooms down there. We're going to have a big bocce ball court. And then another thing that we're trying to figure out, I don't know if we're going to be able to do, but like how many activities can they do while they're there? Little kids, older adults. And it's just been fun too, hearing how all age, multi-generational people stay, of how they all play together. Like that to me is that's my goal. How can we get all these people from age groups to play together? But we are also going to be ADA compliant, but I probably would not have done that if the state did not make us, but I'm so glad they made us because it again is going to make us stand out. And you have to have a parking pad, for handicap. And we're like, well, we already have to have this, whether a concrete or asphalt place, make it a little bit bigger and that you could park there maybe pickleball there. So again, it goes along with the theme of our inside of games. So let's bring it outside and do games. So yeah, that's kind of our staple is we have game rooms, good game rooms in all of our places.
I love that. Jody, do you have something that's like a non-negotiable in your space?
Not really, as in, an offering like a hot tub. My properties are too small and too old to put those in. But what we do like to do, it's kind of like a running theme throughout my properties, is we have a local artist who does vintage posters of travel art and of Tetbury and around the area. So I've incorporated that into most of my properties. And then there's a little tab there where they can go onto their website and purchase the artwork. And that's kind of like my little thing about bringing the community into my business and the design aspect of as far as I can do, because I'm pretty limited compared to you guys with new build massive properties. And I see like in the States, everyone has a pickleball court and all of the amenities, and ours is really more for coming to relax and chill out and get outside and do some walking. And Rose has been there, walk your dog and things like that. So yeah, just again, looking at my avatar, looking at what I've got, I'm trying to do the best what I can.
Love that. Are you ladies ready for our word to end our episode?
Sure.
Yeah, Jody, do you have your word already?
No, come back to me.
You got it. Who has their word ready to go? Debbie, go
I
for
can
it.
go. I don't know what I'm going to do with this word, but it just popped in my head. Creativity. Whatever that means. I'm not sure, but creativity.
Love it. Rose, how about you?
Yeah, so my word this week is service. So how can we be not servicing our guests? That does not sound right at all. But how can we be of service in the best way to our guests, to our staff, to our community, that kind of stuff. We have a group that's staying with us this weekend, and it is an organization that brings together mothers whose children have passed away from cancer. And so we work a lot with different organizations that try to support families who've lost a loved one due to cancer. And then this weekend is a special weekend for the moms. And we've done this before, and that this is a really impactful thing for these women to get together and be with people who are in a similar life experience. And so how can we continue as a company to be of service to the people that are important to us?
Beautiful.
Mine is different. It's okay for my properties to not be luxury and high end and all the fancy things that Saratoga is known for. They have horses in every one of their buildings. I don't have a single horse picture on my property. So it's okay to be different and not have what everybody else has.
Very
And
good.
Jody, how about you?
I'm going to go with community, actually. I'm in Australia at the moment, but I'm about to go over to the UK where my properties are. And I'm just going to look at some more things that I can do to build in within my business with the community. So I do quite a lot already, but I just want to, I haven't been there for maybe 6 months now. So yeah, it's just an area that I really want to look at.
I think that would be a great podcast of
What's
how
that?
to get into how to work community into your business. I love like the art. I think that's a great. I'm actually like, hello, let me go look at art in the area and put that in my like I love that. So I think that would be a great. We'll write that one down.
I put for the art, I put a notice on my local Facebook group. Was there any artist who wanted to showcase their artwork? And I got the guy that I picked, like he has a great business, but there were a lot of local artists. So what I am thinking is I have this big corridor in this group of 5 apartments as you walk in, and I'm thinking of doing like a display of their artwork, kind of like in a school.
Yeah,
But,
I love that.
it's almost like having a little gallery there where artists can come and put their local artwork up there. It's all fully secure, so it's only guests coming in and out, and maybe the artists who are putting their artwork there, and trying to bring something like that into my properties and supporting the locals. Hmm.
I love it.
I
I agree, Debbie. Let's make this the next topic for next week, all about
Yeah,
community.
sounds good.
yes.
All right, ladies. Well, it was great to have you all in the same space yet again. And I hope for the listeners that they've gained some great insights into not only your businesses and who you are, but just tips and ideas of how they can implement different things into their design aspect, whether they're building, whether they're looking at their colors, like Debbie, she needs to, if you want to throw up some accent walls, or even look at hiring a designer. There's so many in our industry who are doing great things. So thanks for sharing your time with us yet again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you later. Bye. This is the Global Hospitality Collective, where we believe hospitality starts with how you make people feel. If you felt connected with today's conversation, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps us reach more hosts around the world. Next week, we'll hear from some of the authors of the Hospitable Host book series as they share their journey, their struggles, and their wins. Until then, keep showing up, keep leading with intention, and above all, keep hosting with heart.